Hello, friends. Welcome back to coverage of the Super League, where Miss Gabby Sparts, GG's. At least went to
Good
game
games.
3. It was
Dude,
good.
those were some weird games.
Oh, I messed up my Jace flip. That I could have flipped it a turn earlier, but I didn't. I didn't crack my fetch or whatever, and
Which
eh.
turn? There were like a million turns.
uh, I could have cracked it. Whatever. The first Jace I played, I could have cracked it a turn earlier, and then maybe potentially gone for the mill outs. It was.
Oh, in game 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a weird game. So, did you have a Silumgar at all during that game?
I didn't see a Silumgar at any point in Game 3, no. I had one sitting in my hand Game 2, but it was, not necessary at
Not
that
necessary at all, by any means. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. With this matchup, I tested it out a lot, and the way that you lose to it is just like you get super excited with your Ugin, and you take it to like 10, and then they steal it with Silumgar, and then you just lose.
point. Yeah.
That and a Mantis Rider. Those are like two ways that you lose very, very, very quickly.
I got excited, you kept a one-lander, I was like, yeah, alright, I have a chance, and then, nothing happened.
It was a little bit of a YOLO hand. So it's tough because with that deck, like with the hand that I kept was one land, Jotty Offshoot, Sylvan Scrying, 3-mana Ram spell, 3-mana Ram spell, 3-mana Ram spell, 4-mana Ram spell, and I think like Ulamog.
So as
So
long
it
as you
just
just
needs,
hit a land, yeah.
yeah, you need one land, right? You need it to be in like the top 3 cards. So I thought it was good enough. You were obviously a little flooded that game too, right?
Yeah, at the end there I got flat. I don't know, I was just hoping to dig into a Mantis Rider earlier or something like that, but
Yeah. Yeah, Mantis Rider really puts that game away very quickly. So
it's fitting. Today is Tilt Tuesday, so it's just exactly on theme. But that was only the second match of the night, guys. We have 4 more matches to go. Our next match is going to be between Hall of Famer Paul Rietzl and Chris Pikula. Let's bring up the deck list for Mr. Rietzl here and see what he's working with. I know he's on black, white, something. What do you think about this deck, Gabby?
this is an interesting deck. Some people were playing it at the GP last weekend too. I think it's kind of cool. I mean, it's like kind of Jundy, right? It's a lot of removal. There's a lot of sweepers. There's 3 Carriel Thrall, which are pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, he got kind of erect last week. I think he was playing against some 4-color rally or something like that.
Yeah, it was 4-color rally.
Yeah, and he didn't have too many ways to interact with it. I mean, he has, let's see, Secure the Waste, Uttered End, Murderous Cut, but otherwise he's just kind of doing his own thing. And the opponent was able to just...
Yeah, the nice thing is against the green-white Megamorph deck, having all those rats is going to be pretty nice, especially if we get to a really, really late point in the game where you can maybe start, what's his face? Planner outbursting, but actually getting lands in the process too.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Because it seems like it's going to be a long and grindy one for sure.
Yeah, he said, Paul Rietzl said he had a good matchup versus like the Dark Jeskai lists and whatnot, and that he felt it might have been a good choice here, but well, we'll see. We'll see what he's up against. Chris is on. If we can bring up Chris's deck, I don't actually remember what Chris was playing this week.
He's on green-white Megamorph.
Green-white Megamorph. Okay, so that's what you were talking about, the green-white Megamorph.
Yeah. So that's why I think the game is going to go pretty long, which I think makes those planner outbursts better in the long game.
Gotcha.
But Chris also has the, a couple like really nice loops, Death Mist Raptor, which is pretty good against rats and removal, Dumb Protector, which buys back a lot of things, A couple ways to protect these things. Valorous Stance is pretty nice. Gideon, obviously, Planeswalkers are pretty good against rats, so it looks like it's going to be a grindy one.
Sure, I actually think Paul might have a good chance against Pikula here. I think, unlike last week's matchup, he's going to be able to do what he wants and maybe go a little bit wider than Pikula can deal with, but we'll have to see. I know both these players are excited. How excited are you? You're 2-0. Congratulations. I forgot to congratulate
excited.
You.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Too busy refilling my salt shaker. It's it's currently the salt is just filling up. The salt is just filling up the entire house right now. We got the salt mines all around. I don't know if you guys can see the map. I have a little pickaxe over there for all that. No, those games are good.
They were long. They were definitely
game
very
one,
long.
you did exactly what you wanted to do, and I couldn't do anything, and I just got smashed. It was There was nothing about that. Game 2, it was kind of back and forth, and then eventually I just ulted Jace.
Yeah, the thing about game 2 is that you just had such a good hand. You had such a good hand. I can't really pick a fight against you. Like, that's the other thing about that matchup too.
Is 3 Jotty life shoot or offshoots, man.
I did.
Every time you were like, turn 1 Jotty, turn 2 Jotty land, I was like, why this again? But no, it was funny. It's yours is the crowd favorite deck, I assume. Whereas
Eldrazi are really cool, and Ulamog.
Yeah, no, they are. They absolutely are. And when you're chaining Ulamog into Ulamog up to off of Sanctum of Ugin, you know, it's just the greatest, as opposed to turn 2 Jace, Mantis Rider, things that we've already seen. So
sweet, Tassie Molassie. It sounds like we're ready to go down to the feature match area. So I think we should head down now.
Let's do it. All right, welcome back to round 3 here of the Super League Championships. We have Chris Pikula on the top with green-white Megamorph, excuse me, versus Hall of Famer Paul Rietzl on the bottom with black-white mid-range. Now, what do you see in these players' hands, Gabby?
Wow, Paul Captain, it's mostly lands, a Ruinous Path, and a Gideon. And I think, I mean, his deck is pretty mana-hungry, so I can see the key, but you could get rolled over by a quick start from Chris.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. Those Blighted Fens are also really awkward versus Hangerback Walker. Not exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, not exactly where you want to be with an Edict affected standard right now. Hangerback Walker pretty strong against that. So yeah, we're just going to see Hangerback Walker from Chris. And Quarantine Field is going to be good later in this game. It'll be good at taking care of that Hangerback, but it's not being cast anytime soon.
Yeah. We've seen time and time again that Silk Wrap, Stasis Snare, Quarantine Field, those type of effects are super good versus Hangerback Walker, but you know, Chris has some other creatures that he wouldn't like to get removed, and Dromoka's Command can bring back the other ones. Of course, if it brings back Hangerback, it will not produce any tokens.
The other really awkward thing about Paul's hand is he has... Oh, and we're down.
Oh, turn off the lights momentarily.
Oh, there you go. No, so he does have Caves of Quellos. He does have Caves of Quellos. So he will be able to cast that Ruinous Path, but I thought he was short on black mana, so he wouldn't be able to kill anything. Not that he wants to kill anything right now, just that he didn't have it at the time.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
The Quarantine Field is going to be really good at taking care of this Death Mist Raptor, too. It's so annoying when these recur.
Yeah, the problem for Paul is that he's already so far behind. Chris had a really good curve, 2-drop, 3-drop. He's going to be able to play something here if he'd like to. Oh, it looks like he's just going to hold up the Valorous and the Dromoka's Command, though.
Yeah, he has no real reason. Knowing against Paul, he has so many Wraths, and knowing that he has a pretty good advantage at this point, there's no reason for him to really extend more into this.
We see Paul just play a Gideon, ally of Zendikar, produce a token, and pass the turn. Dromoka's Command obviously comboing quite nicely with Hangerback Walker should Chris opt to pump it up and then fight with the token.
Yeah, so there's a good chance he wants to get rid of this thing and just fights that Death Mist. Or actually, he can put counter on Hangerback and fight those two.
Of course, Chris fully aware of the deck lists here.
It is nice that the deck lists are known. It is nice seeing these players being able to play actually around the cards that are actually in the deck and the cards that matter. Yeah,
it's like a top 8 of a GP or anything like that. You get the deck lists of the other players in a, or at least a Pro Tour or anything like that, you know.
Yeah, so we're gonna see. We're gonna pump up the jam here. It seems. So counter on Hangerback and fight the. Oh, we put counter on Death Mist. That does mean that Death Mist can attack Gideon and just kill it in one turn, which is really nice.
Also plays around like single target exile effects that you know, he doesn't want to go full on the Hangerback when he knows Paul has access to Quarantine Field, Silk Wrap, etc. Mm-hmm. Looks like he's happy just to sit back with the Hangerback though and pump it up. Ooh, another Hangerback off the top for Chris.
The nice thing too is that he could potentially, so he's just gonna hold up. He's just gonna hold up Valorous Stance in case any of these. He almost is okay with some of these Hangerbacks dying, because if they get exiled, they're way worse than if you just get Stopters. So we see a Mixilus and a kill of the Death Mist, but we get protected here.
super
Yeah.
super defensively, but Paul doesn't have a better choice. I mean, he could secure the waist, chump, chump, chump. You know, quarantine field, not exactly its best here. He'd rather wait until he has one more mana to cast it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier about it not being that bad that those hangerback walkers die, because obviously against planar outburst it's the same, but against a card like quarantine field, you know, you just diversify your threats basically. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, I gotta imagine Forest is a great draw for Chris, who has an he actually didn't opt to do
he didn't
anything.
play it. Does Paul have any sort of discard or any reason for him to want to hold Forest in play? In hand, rather?
Well, I know Paul has, I believe, a Languish in his deck or something, but he could have played the Den Protector face down there and held up the flip ability. Or the Megamorph, rather.
Yeah. So here comes Quarantine Field for 2. And it's going to take both hangerback walkers.
This is exactly what Chris was afraid of, and exactly what Paul wanted to do.
Yeah. And also,
actually,
like, he was diversifying some stuff, too. And that, now it's nice that this, you know, Deathmist Raptor has a counter on it, because he gets to keep chipping away and put a serious clock. It's actually a 3-turn clock as opposed to being like a 4-turn clock. Yeah, it'd be a 4-turn clock.
But if we're looking at Paul's hand, wow, Chris again not playing anything.
Wow.
So Paul gets to.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I can't figure out what he's. I can't figure out what he's not playing. Oh, there you go. Now he's played the Forest.
Sure, but man, now Paul gets to secure the waste end of turn. Sorin plus.
Gain a ton of life.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. He's gonna have 14 power worth of 2/1 lifelinkers.
Yeah. That's really, really good. Oh, and Planner out. Okay, well now he doesn't need it. How much is the Awaken cost for that card?
Which one?
Can we hover over it? Yeah,
Outburst is 8. Ruinous Path is 7. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, he doesn't want to, because you can just, take up this thing, gain a ton of life.
And wow, Paul's actually going to win in 2 swings here.
Wow. Yeah, he doesn't even care to protect the Sorin in any way, because Deathmist Raptor can't even kill it.
Yeah, this is... I'm not... Again, I don't know why...
This was a base swing?
I don't know why Chris was not playing out those Den Protectors, but I guess he was trying to play as hard as he could around the Planar Outburst and the Languishes. Like, this was just a brutal swing.
The problem is that I think the Quarantine Field is just a one-off, but the Quarantine Field gets him so good in this spot.
Yeah, look, we even see Chris forced to use a Silk Wrap on one of the Secure the Waste tokens. 1 for 6 value. Or, 1/6 of a card value, I should say.
1/6 of a card value?
Yeah. 16.666 repeating. Nice percentages.
What do you do now if you're Chris?
You kind of cry. That's what you got to like. You have to deal with the Sora, and you have to deal with the tokens. You don't have the means to do it either. You heard it here
first. Next action, cry.
Chris can join me in the salt fields. I think 2 5s with Outlast. That's what we're actually.
Quarantine and salt.
I'm like a 14-17 at this point as far as Salt Road outcasts are concerned, but Chris has a good mentor. And yeah, I mean, I think Chris is just seeing if he can survive anyway, but of course we know he can't, especially with the Ruinous Path taking out an extra blocker.
Right.
Well, I kind of expected the match to go like this. I don't know about you. I think you expected, what, a little bit more grindy?
I thought it was going to be a little bit more grindy. I want to take a look at the deck list post-board, but yeah, I mean, if Paul was going to make a huge comeback and gain a ton of life, it was going to be exactly this line. How many Secure the Waste is he running? Let me see.
Paul's just got that one secure, so...
Just one?
Yeah, just one.
Wow. Yeah, let me pull it up. Yeah. And the one Quarantine Field. They were both very, very good right here.
Yeah, so Paul actually has enough there to cast Ruinous Path with Awaken and keep the land untapped. And that was a very, very quick game one in favor of Mr. Paul Rietzl there. You see him on the left.
Yeah.
What kind of sideboard options do you think these players are going to make?
I think you were right, and that definitely went by a lot quicker than I expected it to. Let's see. So the players are in sideboard view. It looks like the Dromogus Commander coming out for Chris, which makes sense. You don't really have what are you really fighting in his deck, you know? There's a bunch of 1/1s, some carrier thralls, which are just making other 1/1s.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And what are we... yeah, so all of them came out. Let me pull up deck list real quick. See,
Who has access
you know, like,
to, like,
there's a self-inflicted wound, and there's a... Yeah. Tragic Arrogance could be good against all the tokens, but... Paul's deck doesn't even play that many creatures.
Yeah, he's got 6 Planeswalkers, 4 Hangerback Walkers, 3 Carrier Thralls. The Secure the Wastes, he has... Oh, he doesn't have any Secure the Wastes in the sideboard. He does have 3 Wingmate Rocks, though, which are generally pretty good versus the green-white deck. They're forced to use multiple spells, not only to take out, like, the token, but the Wingmate Rock itself.
Yeah, so you just get value out of it. And you can make sure that you're casting it on a turn where you can maybe, like, end of turn Secure the Wastes, trigger some of those guys, send it in, and, like, after you cleared out the board at some point. It looks like Chris is opting to put some of those Dromoka's Command back in the deck, which I find interesting. I don't really know... I guess they're really good against Quarantine Field, but I don't know what else they're good against. What else do they do? What else do they get in this spot? I don't think they take anything else. Oh, the Stasis Snares. And the Stasis Snares, Paul's definitely going to keep in because he probably wants to take some of the Raptors and things like that away from Chris. So yeah, that makes sense. Maybe he's keeping... It looks like he boarded all of them out, and it looks like he put a couple of them back in. Not all of them. Okay.
I wonder if he put in the Masteries and the Evolutionary Leap. We'll have to see here.
Mastery seems pretty good. I imagine, especially post-board, this game's going to go a little bit longer. So.
Oh, Fate Forgotten in the sideboard of Hall of Famer Paul Rietzl there. We see that in his opening hand. I don't know about this hand. What do you think about the player's hands here?
Enchantment? Yeah, I can see that being good. Let's see. Okay, both players kept. Paul's a little light on lands, especially with 2 of Nixilis in hand, but the hand seems good. He did bring in the Fate Forgotten.
Right.
So we see a pretty... Looks like Chris's hand is going to shape up pretty nicely. He needs to draw a couple more lands, but going... he's got a pretty fast kind of like aggro-y start. Oh, another Avatar.
Wow, a very aggro start. The double...
Yeah.
Double Avatar of the Resolute. Of course, Paul has that self-inflicted wound, which is able to not only take care of the Resolute, but leave a nice opening for him to finally get rid of the Hangerback with either Fate Forgotten or Stasis Snare.
Yeah, definitely.
Ooh, but Paul's missing lands, and this is exactly what Chris is going to need here.
Yeah, and that's what I was concerned with Paul's hand when we were looking at their hands at the start. You know, with A, expensive Planeswalkers in hand, and B, really light hand. Like, you know, his last hand was very land heavy, but it definitely worked out for him. His deck requires a lot of lands to function, but here he can't really do anything.
4th land off the top for Mr. Chris Pikula. Jams the Gideon. Probably laughs a little bit as Paul Rietzl is stuck on 2.
Yeah.
No mana left means he's probably going to attack with the Hangerback Walker here. Produces a token, and Paul can only hope to hit a land here.
Yeah, and it seems like at this point Chris just wants to jam. He just wants to press it. Oh, there you go. That's a start.
At the top.
Okay.
It's definitely a start. You know, if Chris goes for making Gideon a creature, Paul can actually Stasis Snare it. It's kind of an interesting little interaction there.
Yeah.
Wow, and he goes for it.
Oh, and I think he's completely right to do this too. I think in the spot where you see that he's not really doing anything. I mean, Chris doesn't know what's in Paul's hand, but he saw him miss a land drop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So odds are, yes. So here, oh wow.
Well, the thing is,
this is actually exactly what Paul needs to get back in the game.
Chris has a Dromoka's Command, and with Paul only having that 1 Stasis Snare, it's a little bit awkward. He's able to make him sacrifice it and get it back, though. Actually, immediately, he can reuse the Gideon immediately to make another token. I like the little effect of Gideon sitting in the middle of the creatures there.
Yep. He's just hanging out. He's in the battlefield. He likes to fight.
All right, let's see what
Chris wants to do here. What Avatar? And he's extending into this. You know, a Wrath would be pretty bad at this point, but you can get your Gideon back, and your Hangerback survives the Wrath relatively well, so you're okay jamming here.
Sure. I wonder if Chris didn't realize he would be able to use Gideon's ability immediately, or if he just wanted to wait until end of turn to see what Paul did, because he missed out on a potential activation of
Yeah.
Gideon on his second main phase.
So what are we going to see? Dromoka's command.
Yeah, he has no better option to put a 1/1
counter, sack enchantment.
And this is actually really risky because if Paul Rietzl had another stasis snare, he'd be able to flash it in response, get rid of the hangerback walker, sack the stasis snare that had the hangerback walker underneath it, and then you know, wow.
Yeah, that would be wow. Yeah, that could have been a blowout.
So I think Chris waiting there might have been a mistake.
And now he knows that. Okay, so Paul gets to Fate Forgotten, the hangerback walker, and there's a lot. You know, Chris has put a lot into the hangerback walker at this point, but he is just at 6 life, and now Chris also knows that there's probably no stasis snare at any point in here. Although it's possible he would have just still exiled with Fate Forgotten. You do save more life if you take the Gideon.
Sure.
Not everything's going to be in play.
3/3 hangerback, yeah. Well, if Paul had a Wrath in hand and went land Wrath, and then Wrath again, no, never mind. He still has the Gideon.
Yep.
All right. So
yep.
Paul a little bit victim of keeping maybe a greedy hand. Double Obnixilis, 2 lands, didn't really hit a land for a while. Chris might have made a questionable play, which could have let Paul back into the game, but Paul did not have that second stasis snare to punish him. And,
so do you change anything now that they're switching play draw? Yeah.
I think they'd relatively keep it the same. Maybe Paul's going to go a little bit more aggressive, but I think Paul Rietzl can go wider than Chris Pikula can.
Yeah, and it looked like the Dromoka's command looked pretty good post board still, so I think he is still happy to have a couple of them in there. Maybe I think he might have still left like 1 or 2 in the sideboard.
Look, whatever they did, the opponents made some quick sideboarding. Paul's got another
another landline one, but there is a Read the Bones in hand, so they can easily dig you out and find you a couple more lands.
Sure, of course, Paul.
There's a lot of and you have a lot of good answers for some of Chris's stuff. You have the Fate Forgotten, which looked pretty good last game. Chris has a very aggro hand again. Avatar. Both Dromoka's command to deal with any of the enchantment removal. And Death Mist.
Chris Pikula's hand is a lot better because of the fact that he doesn't have Hangerback Walker in it. His creatures getting eaten by enchantments like
he just has to aggro him out.
Yeah. Yeah, he can just get rid of the enchantments with Dromoka's command. Although it looks like Paul is hitting lands here, and we have to assume with Read the Bones he's going to hit some more.
Yeah, and I believe he will most likely ship anything that's not lands here. Your hand's so good at this point. You just want to make sure you make your land drops between Quarantine Field of Nixilis and do we know what? There you go. Stasis Snare and Wingmate Rock. Okay.
Not lands. He might have double bottomed. We're not quite sure. But
yeah, we're not quite sure what happened, but we do know we live in the Stasis Snare Wingmate Rock world now. It is going to be really sweet if he draws a land here.
I wouldn't be surprised if he had top the Stasis Snare.
I want to say that's a land. It looks like a land.
Yeah, but he didn't know the land was on top, though. It does look like
I feel like that's a full art basic. I think it's a full art plains.
Oh, maybe it's a blighted fen. What if it's another blighted fen? It's kind of awkward.
Maybe. It's a blighted fen. Good job, Kenji. You got me.
What was it? 1 for 4 then? Am I now?
So we get to see another end to exile the Death Mist, and that Death Mist is gone for good, which is exactly what Paul wants. But Crystal has a very aggro hand right here between Warden, the Avatar, even Evolutionary Leap.
Yeah,
so he
came in from the sideboard.
Yeah.
Pretty good against all the removal from Paul Rietzl. We might see just a play of a Warden and an Evolutionary Leap holding up a sacrifice from Chris Pikula's side.
At this point of the game, it's a little spooky to extend too much into it because, Paul hasn't really been committing anything to the board, and he has 6 cards in hand, and he's seen at least 2 more with we don't know how many he's scryed with Read the Bones, but he's seen a lot. So there's a really good chance that he has a sweeper at this point.
Yeah. And it's important to note that Paul Rietzl's second white source is a Caves of Koilos. He does not have 2 non-pain white sources. So we saw last turn that Utter End had to be used and take a ping, and the second white here is going to cause him to take another.
Yeah, the painful mana base though. So what are we going to see? Just attack, potential pump of the Warden?
Nothing at all here.
Just this, it's nice that we get to make a land drop here too.
Yeah, this is really bad for Paul Rietzl. He wants to be able to use these Stasis Snare and Murderous Cut effectively, but with Evolutionary Leap on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And he knows
so
that
he actually opts to go for the Fate Forgotten so that he can actually remove some of these creatures in a more beneficial way to him, and not just let Chris draw infinite creatures.
Yeah, and when you're behind like this, I think you need to make those plays that give you the greatest chance at success. Paul, obviously, one of the greats, and he knows he needs to do this type of thing. He's actually able to cast Stasis Snare plus Murderous Cut, so he's not dead quite yet.
Yeah. Chris does have so much power on the field, though. And see, right now... Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if Chris Pikula runs out of threats, if he just hits a land here, Paul might be able to get back into this. He has enough removal for
for double quarantine field.
For all of Chris's, yeah.
I mean, part of the problem is that Chris has all these Dromokus commands, so...
Yeah, and that goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of the match, when they drew their opening hands.
Yeah. And it's tough because your removal... It's difficult because if you have just a removal spell, you can get that creature into the graveyard, right? And that's good. If it's an enchantment, you get to exile these creatures, specifically with Stasis Snare and Quarantine Field. You get to exile them and they're not a problem anymore, but if you lose that enchantment, that's, you know, huge blowout. So we've seen the benefits and we've seen them be pretty awkward in the spot right now.
Looks like Chris is going to respond to the Murderous Cut by using a Dromoka's command here.
What's the goal of doing it right now?
I am not actually sure why you would do it right now as opposed to waiting on it. I don't think it adds...
I think maybe he's not doing it right now.
I mean, he could add a counter to Nissa, and that would put
more damage through?
2? Sure. But
I guess that turns any of your attackers into lethal attackers.
You have to remember that. I think that's the Warden of the first tree underneath that Stasis Snare, right? So
it makes any of his... so putting a counter and sacking an enchantment makes any of his attackers a lethal attacker. So Paul needs to deal with every single attacker from this point on. Yeah, so he goes down to 2. Paul does have ways to gain life, but we know that there's none in hand right now. And right now, if he just opts for... If he draws a land, he goes Quarantine Field, kill those 2 creatures. Chris just gets to Dromoka's command on top win.
Looks like Paul did not draw what he needed. Soren is exactly the opposite, I guess. I think Carrier Thrall was the best draw there for Paul Rietzl. It would let him block, let him cast the Stasis Snare.
Yeah, block, Stasis Snare, and then it's possible that Chris snaps off that other Dromoka's command, and then the last Quarantine Field might do some work, but in this spot, I think that was just the nail in the coffin. Yeah, so we just see a pump for the Warden.
The third Dromoka's command, the draw for Chris, and I'm sure he'll just go to attacks.
You think Paul's just repping Secure the Waste at this point? I mean, we know that there's only a Stasis Snare in hand, and every attacker here is lethal.
Well, Paul's an athlete. Yep. He's not going to concede until the match is
Yeah.
And so,
Chris
Pikula
Chris doesn't attack.
The match down 2-1 over Hall of Famer Paul Rietzl, who had some unfortunate draws those last 2 games. Might have kept some sketchy hands. Didn't really draw the lands when he needed to. The first game was really interesting. He was able to keep a land-heavy hand and really leverage that into casting multiple spells.
Yeah, and I think you were totally right. They were really not as grindy as I thought they were going to be. They actually put the clock, the green-white Megamorph deck kind of put the clock on very quickly. I think we would have seen a different game if at any point Planar Outburst was cast and some of those creatures were killed, but for the most part it seemed that it was a back-and-forth game between, removing the enchantment removal and just trying to jam.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, guys, that was only round 3 here. We have 3 more rounds to go. Gabby, thanks for the games, and thank you for casting me. Up next, we have Li Tian versus Josh Utterlayden. Don't go anywhere. We have some commercials, and we will be right back.